I wish all children could know your love.
Random disclaimer.
There's a moment in Ren and Stimpy where the camera zooms in directly in the character's face, and suddenly you see every pore, every tooth, and every disgusting detail. And while you're watching it, one thought pops into your mind. Why is this on a kids channel? Because Ren and Stimpy didn't just feel weird. It felt wrong at times. Humor was uncomfortable, the animation was grotesque, and the characters acted like they belong in a psychological breakdown rather than a children's cartoon. But somehow, the show aired on Nickelodeon for years, and I watched it and I indulged, and I thought nothing of it until I got older. And the deeper you look at it, the more it starts to feel like something strange has happened, because Ren and Stimpy isn't just a cartoon show for kids. It was a adult animation, somewhat slipped into a children's network show. Now, disclaimer, this is not to cancel the show. This is not trying to bash the show. These are just things I'm observing now that I'm an adult. With that being said, let's go into my first topic, and that is the humor geared towards adults.
Oh boy, I wouldn't want to be in Mad Dog's shoes now.
One of the biggest clues that Ren and Stimpy wasn't primarily written for children is the way that the humor is structured. Most children's cartoons rely on simple and visual comedy. Slapstick, silly situations, obvious jokes. You know the formula. This is where things for me starts to fall apart concerning the idea that Ren and Stimpy was a kid show. Because once you really pay attention to the humor, it doesn't really feel like it was written for kids at all. Because to me, it felt like kids were just there, they're just watching. Because like I said before, kids shows follow a simple format. They're silly, they're slapstick, their punchlines are obvious, something simple that kids can get. But Ren and Stimpy to me doesn't do that. It goes deeper because they have a point to make. They got some jokes to layer, and now that I'm older, I fully understand now.
10, 9, 20. Inspection. Isn't that quick?
Alright, so trying to get back on topic because I do have ADHD. Ren and Stimpy does spend a lot of time trying to make the audience uncomfortable on purpose, and by golly, they do a damn good job. There are moments where the show just lingers. The character stares too long, or reaction goes on for too long. A smile seems a little forced. Now, this kind of humor to me is not built for kids. Kids are expected fast, obvious punchlines to make them laugh and move on. But Ren and Stimpy, no. It sits in the moment to make you more awkward, more uncomfortable. And at this point, now think about it, is this experimental or something? Is this experimental? But this kind of humor to me, it's not really made for kids to enjoy. But it does make you feel interested in watching it. It's something that you can't turn away from. And back in the day, I wasn't too picky because I was a kid. Whatever looks cartoonish, I'm about to watch it. But I do appreciate this type of humor, especially now. It is funny. Okay, like don't get it twisted. Don't be watching this video and get offended. On to the next topic. Animation that was designed to disturb.
Look at these hands. These are the hands of a working man.
There's so many instances that showed disturbing imagery in the show where it's disgusting nose hairs, or like just pimples that's ready to burst, or somebody had poor hygiene or nasty teeth. It was up close and very disgusting, and there's so many examples, and if I go through every example, this video is going to be too long and I'm going to gas out. So I'm going to make sure this section is tidy and to the point. Another major clue that the show wasn't built for children lies in the animation style. Most children's animations follow a simple rule. The characters should be appealing to look at. Designs are clean, round, and oppressive in a friendly way. Ren and Stimpy intentionally rejects that approach, and trust me, it rejects that approach. The show is famous for its extremely close-up shots. These moments zoom in into the characters' hyper-detailed realism that feels almost shocking compared to normal cartoon styles. Suddenly, viewers see things the cartoons usually avoid emphasizing, and like I said before, skin stuff, like they'll go into the pores. gunking your teeth, jewel saliva, pulsating veins, and its red, bloodshot eyes. These shots were drawn to intensify the details, specifically to make the audience uncomfortable. And I wasn't uncomfortable as a kid. I thought it was funny. But now looking at it, why was I laughing at that? Ren and Stimpy breaks the visual language that most children's animations use. This kind of exaggerated, grotesque imagery is so much more common in adult cartoons, which raises an important question. Is the visual style designed to disturb the viewer? And if it was, why was it airing during the children's programming show? Next section I want to talk about as far as Ren and Stimpy is the character dynamic that is not kid friendly. And there's so many examples in here, but I'm going to focus on the main characters. Ren and Stimpy is the best example I can get. If I make this video so freaking long, but here we go. This aspect becomes more obvious with age, and that is the relationship between Ren and Stimpy, the main characters. On the surface, Ren and Stimpy appears to follow a classic cartoon duo formula. Two opposite personalities creating a comedic situation. And there's so many. For example, we have Shaggy and Scooby from Scooby-Doo. We got Tom and Jerry from the Tom and Jerry show. We got Finn and Jake from Adventure Time. We have Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck from the Looney Tunes. They have Pinky and the Brain. Typically, they have a character that is slightly more intelligent or street smart than another character, and a character who's not as street smart or smart or on any level. I don't freaking know. They tend to be quote unquote dumb or naive or carefree. It's always some type of dynamic somewhere. Now sometimes some of the characters are on the same type of intellectual level. That does play out, but more often than not, they always have a character that's going to be quote unquote smarter, and the other character, their best friend, they're going to be quote unquote not smart. And this duo is following with the same formula. The dynamic between them quickly goes beyond playful rivalry though. Ren is simply not the quote unquote grumpy character archetype. He is volatile, paranoid, and often emotionally unstable. There's not an episode where he's stable. He's mentally unwell the whole entire series. Throughout the series, he frequently erupts into long, intense rants directed at Snippy. Snippy's like Ren's punching bag. Crazy. Emotional abuse. Get a therapist. Snippy, on the other hand, remains almost completely oblivious to the hostility directed towards him. Like I said, some of these duos, there's going to be a character that's like not hip. They're not street smart. They're not as smart. And Snippy is that archetype. This imbalance seems to create a strange dynamic where Ren's rage becomes the center source of comedy. Kids watching the show, including me, may simply interpret these moments as exaggerated yelling, or they're just playing around. It's all fun and games. Ren sometimes crack under pressure, or Snippy does something to tee him off and he just fires out on Snippy. Snippy, he just living life. Sometimes it don't really bother him, and a lot of times he don't even catch on to it. Now that I think about it, if I think back to the animation style, the dynamic between the characters,
Oh, my beloved ice cream bar.
and the humor written for the adults,
Call the police.
it makes you wonder. They did like a revamp, a revival, and the content that they had in this new show, was that what they wanted to do all along, or they realized that they were toting a line, with the show on Nickelodeon, and they want to go full out? I do not know. I feel that the adult revival confirmed the original intent of the show. That is my opinion. Okay, don't come for me. But it is odd timing right now. Years after the original series ended, the show returned in a much more explicit form titled Ren and Stimpy Adult Party. This aired on Spike TV. Is Spike TV still around? Hold on, let me see. Spike TV. Oh, okay. So according to Google AI, thanks to Google AI, Spike TV ended on January 18th, 2018, and it rebranded as Paramount Network. Well, I actually have Paramount, and I actually did not know that. That's what I was saying. This show Revival aired on Spike TV. This TV channel was aimed towards adult audiences, and without the restrictions of a children's network, the show leaned fully into the adult humor, and I've seen clips of it. I didn't watch the Revival because how old was I in 2003? Yeah, I was definitely still a minor. Like, I was still, yeah, of course, I wasn't checking for that show. But I seen clips recently, and I was like, oh, okay, oh, they were going out the yin yang with this. But interestingly, the core style of the show didn't fundamentally change. If I look at how they did the animation, which was exaggerated, the disturbing close-ups, which hasn't really changed, and the uncomfortable humor that was already present in the original series, I barely can tell a difference. Like, the only thing that's different is, I guess they went balls to the wall with the jokes and stuff. That's all I can think of.
These dirty hands. And with these hands, I hold fate a million.
If I compare the shows I watched in the 90s and the early 2000s and what I'm seeing now, because now I'm having, little cousins that's getting born into this world growing up, I'm seeing what they're absorbing, from the Roblox to the the Fortnites to the YouTube shows that's coming up. I'm seeing different comparisons. And I feel like times has changed from what I was watching back in the 90s. I want to know, Nickelodeon, what was y'all thinking putting a show on here? Since I mentioned Nickelodeon, I forgot to talk to the Nickelodeon point. Yeah, Nickelodeon, why was the show even approved? Why? It's funny because I think I know my answer, because now that I'm older and I'm looking at all these documentaries, these interviews, reading these articles on the news, all this stuff is coming out about Nickelodeon behind the scenes and what they were doing. I'm not surprised now. The network spent years running reruns, because I remember that, like Doug all the time and the Rugrats. Ooh, they were playing them back to back. And of course, when the live action shows came out, they threw those on there too. I wonder why they stick to those formulas. Like, why did they throw Ren and Stimpy into the mix during that time? Now I'm thinking about Nickelodeon, it makes me wonder, even though the show was controversial, its impact on animation is kind of hard to ignore, because before the early 1990s, many cartoon shows was limited to tight budgets and strict production rules. The characters moved a little bit differently, expressions a little bit simplified, and the visual comedy was a little bit more restricted. Now, if you compare those earlier cartoon shows to Ren and Stimpy, that show definitely pushed some boundaries and limitations. I just cannot help to think about the exaggerated animation, the adult jokes sprinkled in there, because that's everywhere. There's adult humor sprinkled everywhere. And the exaggerated acting and the disturbing, unpredictable visual gags that was in that show is different. It's something else. However, I haven't seen a show on children's networks close to that in recent times. Because if you look at the Nickelodeon shows that they produce later on in the future, they don't tote the same line as Ren and Stimpy. So, stuff calmed down a little bit now. Do they still have their little adult jokes here and there? Yeah, but it wasn't as close to that. It was a lot going on in that Ren and Stimpy show. I really can't believe I watched that show religiously. But anyway, I'm done rambling, but I say all this to say, happy, joy, joy, happy, joy, joy, happy, joy, joy, happy, joy. Looking back on it, Ren and Stimpy didn't really fit inside of a category people usually place it. I know it's labeled as a cartoon, but to me, it doesn't feel like a cartoon. To me. It wasn't structured like most cartoons. It didn't really look like them, and it definitely didn't behave like them, but it followed a formula that got it on a network. The humor was layered with satire that children couldn't understand, but I understand it today. Animation deliberately pushed into the grotesque territory, and the characters often behaved in ways that felt more uncomfortable than playful. And with all this being said, knowing what I know about the jokes written, the animation style, and the character dynamics, it makes it hard for me to look at this show as a typical kids cartoon. Ren and Stimpy to me feels more like an adult animated experiment that ended up airing on Nickelodeon. And being on there, it did look like a cartoon. Kids watched it, probably did not understand it fully, and adults watched it and understood it completely. And Nickelodeon aired it for years. Let me know how you feel about Ren and Stimpy. Like, do you feel that it's an adult cartoon? Do you have the same sentiments as me? If you do or don't, let me know. Let's have a discussion because the show's interesting. I watched it and I rewatched it because I wanted to, you know, have nostalgia and relive some memories. And seeing the stuff I saw, I was like, okay, I watched that. Our attention spans are not that good, and I just don't want to. I just want to make it like an hour long because I can. With that all being said, thanks so much for watching. I have some other stuff to watch and have my opinion on. Let me know what else that you want me to cover, something that I missed. Let me know. It's a open community. You can say what you want to say, but don't be disrespectful. But you can say what you want to say and, you know, have a good time. And until then, I have some other stuff I got to do. I'm trying to do 2 videos next month. Fingers crossed before I go out of town. And yeah, I'm out. I'm out of 5,000. I'm out of 5,000. Stop. All right, bye. Oh, forgot. Look at this. Look at this. She thick.